Today, I want to talk about how to deal with difficult people. So, for those of you who've been watching my previous videos over the last 2 weeks, you know that this week is about the judge saboteur. So, the judge saboteur is that part of us that obviously we want to put outside of us that judges everything, that judges ourselves, people, and situations. So in this case, I'm talking about how we judge other people, and I'm also talking about how they judge us. So how do you deal with people who are being very judgy of you? How do you deal with people who are angry at you, who are upset at you, or who are mean to you, or people who are just difficult and in a bad mood all the time? The main thing from a positive intelligence perspective is that we need to move into our sage brain. So remember, I spoke to you about rewiring the brain from negative to positive, from negative emotions to positive emotions, from fear to love. And in this case, it is to that sage wisdom that we might want to call Zen. So when you're dealing with difficult people, the first thing is you want to, before you're about to deal with someone difficult, it is a really good idea to do a lot of PQ reps. So when you have access to the PQ app, there is something called the gym in the app. And in the gym, there are a lot of different sessions that you can do where you can do PQ reps to just get yourself into that sage brain, which is the main part of positive intelligence, moving into the sage brain, or one of the parts. Let's say there's also intercepting the saboteurs, like the judge. So what you want to do is you want to be fully charged up in your sage brain before you speak to the person. For example, you would do something like just focusing on your breathing. A PQ rep or a positive intelligence quotient rep is simply focusing on one action or sensation or sense for 10 seconds at a time. That is considered a PQ rep. So if you're just focusing on your breath work, your breathing for 10 seconds, noticing the gentle rise and fall of your chest or belly for 10 seconds, then you've done a PQ rep. If you're just listening for the furthest sound away from you that you can hear, then you've done a PQ rep. If you're listening for the closest sound that you can hear, like, for example, the sound of your own breathing, for 10 seconds, then you've done a PQ rep. And that just brings you into presence. A visual PQ rep, you might look in front of you at something, and here's one of the best things you can do when you are dealing with a difficult person, is to do a visual rep on them. So now you're looking at the person and you're noticing maybe the shape of their eyes, or you're noticing the shape of their eyebrows, or you're noticing their lips as they're moving, just getting very intensely focused on one part of that person. And as you kind of drift away into noticing something about that person, or noticing something beautiful about that person, maybe you like their hair, or maybe you like their eyes, or maybe you like the way they move their hands while they're speaking. So just getting laser focused on that one thing as they're talking, and seeing whether that pulls you into presence. Another thing you can do is you could do a tactile PQ rep while you're standing in front of them. So while they are busy going off pop or getting upset or whatever it is they do, saying something that upsets you, you can just do a visual PQ rep where you are just maybe touching your hands and noticing what it feels like to touch your hand. They're not going to even notice you doing this. If you're touching the ridges of your fingers and just noticing, they don't need to see you doing that. You could be doing that very gently and quietly without them seeing it, unobtrusively, and just feeling the ridges on your fingertips. Or if you want to be empathizing with them, you might want to think about where it is they're coming from. You might want to go deeper in your mind to what it is that this person really wants, because they're saying one thing, but they're meaning something else inside. There's something else going on inside. And you might want to put yourself in their shoes for a second and imagine what it is that they are really feeling. Imagine what they're feeling to make them speak this way, talk to you this way, be difficult, be otherwise, whatever it is, get angry, whatever it is that they are being right now that is difficult for you. Just put yourself in their shoes and have a feel where it's coming from. Just try it. Maybe you won't know. Maybe you'll have to ask them directly what it is, where they're coming from, where is it coming from. Maybe you could do that in a gentle way if you've done enough PQ reps to get yourself into the sage brain. So that's one way to deal with difficult people, just to empathize with them. So you could also imagine what they look like as a 5-year-old. Just think of them as a 5-year-old. Because mostly when people are being weird, it's when they're in their 5-year-old brain. It's not when they're acting as an adult. And they're in that kind of survival brain where they're just trying to survive, and they're very stressed and they're very anxious, and there's all kinds of things going on in their head, but they are not present. There's something called saboteur contagion, which means when they're going into their saboteurs, you go into theirs. But there's also sage contagion, which is when you go into sage, they shift into sage. So I'm going to read you a little children's story that I absolutely love to illustrate this perspective on how you get the sage contagion. The story is called No Presents, Please, and it's by Zen Tale, written by Peter Whitfield and illustrated by Nancy Bevington. I'm going to read you the story and see if that helps you get into the sage brain, the Zen brain, you could call it. What a beautiful day, Guru Walter Wombat declared as he sat in the shade of a large elm tree. The sun is shining, the birds are singing, and I do so love watching the trees swaying in the warm breeze. What a rotten day, grumbled Grizzled Bear as he stomped through the flowers. The sun hurts my eyes, the birds screech and squawk, the trees are in my way, and the wind is messing up my fur. Grizzle Bear continued stomping until he happened to stomp right up to where Guru Walter Wombat was sitting quietly. What are you doing sitting in my stomping path? Grizzle demanded. Guru Walter just sat there. He smiled. He listened. But he said nothing. Get out of my way, Grizzle ordered, furrowing his brow. Unless you want me to stomp on your head? Guru Walter Wombat just smiled. Why aren't you saying anything? Would you like me to give you a bone-crunching Grizzle Bear squeeze? Grizzle screamed, his temper rising. Guru Walter Wombat just smiled. Didn't you hear me? Roared Grizzle even more loudly, shaking his large paw in Guru Walter Wombat's face. Do you want a big punch on the nose? Guru Walter Wombat just smiled. Grizzle was confused. Guru Walter Wombat didn't seem to react to him at all, and he was no longer full of stomping and screaming energy, but still feeling quite angry. Haven't you got anything to say? He demanded. Guru Walter Wombat looked up at Grizzle Bear. It is not my birthday, he said, smiling back at him. What? Why are you telling me it's not your birthday? Grizzle demanded. I don't care about your birthday. Then why are you trying to give me presents? Replied Guru Walter gently. What presents? The confused Grizzle replied. You tried to give me a stomp on the head, a bone-crunching Grizzle Bear squeeze, and a punch on the nose. I would not want those presents, even if it were my birthday, said Guru Walter calmly. I guess you will have to keep your anger all for yourself. Grizzle glared at Guru Walter Wombat sitting amongst the grass and the flowers. I'm not angry, he shouted, stomping on a daisy and crushing it into the ground. Really? Guru Walter replied, raising an eyebrow and pointing to the broken flower beneath Grizzle's foot. Grizzle lifted his paw and picked up the daisy, which now lay crushed in his paw. I didn't do that, Grizzle protested, did I? Guru Walter Wombat just sat. He smiled, but he said nothing. Grizzle looked at the daisy and frowned. He was a big, burly bear, but he never really meant to hurt anyone or anything. I'm sorry, little flower. I didn't mean to crush you. I was angry, Grizzle admitted. I didn't see you, but I will try not to crush any more flowers today. And true to his word, for the rest of the day, Grizzle Bear was very careful of all the flowers in the forest and all the birds and all the trees. The real tale taken from Zen Tales is that the Buddha was sitting in the shade of a tree when an angry man came upon him. The angry man started yelling insults, but the Buddha sat there calmly and said nothing. The angry man continued screaming, but received no reply. After about 5 minutes, the man could not keep up his anger at such a level and asked, "Do you have nothing to say?" The Buddha asked the man, "If someone gives you a gift and you do not want it, to whom does it belong?" The man answered that it must remain with the giver of the gift. Then the Buddha said, "I refuse to accept your anger, so you will have to keep it yourself." The angry man is said to have become a disciple of the Buddha. And then it finishes off by saying, Grizzle had spent so much time being angry that he had forgotten he was angry. You don't have to be angry just because someone else is. It is much better to let go of anger than to hold on to it, even if someone tries to give it to you. Being happy is much more fun. So the moral of the story is you always have a choice. When dealing with difficult people, are you going to become like them or are they going to become like you? It's not about you just accepting their behavior. It might feel like you're just accepting their behavior, but it's actually about being in your sage wisdom, being in your sage power. And there's a chance, a pretty good chance, if you maintain that for long enough, that you will see them moving into their sage as well, and all of that anger dissipating. Coming a little bit away from positive intelligence now and these Zen tales, I also learned something called access consciousness a couple of years ago. And in access consciousness, we say, who does it belong to? We're always asking the question, who does this belong to? And return to sender with consciousness. That's one question that you can use. And the other one is you can say, interesting point of view. It's just an interesting point of view. Anytime anyone expresses a opposite opinion to yours, you can just say, well, that's an interesting point of view. And another one that I've used that also comes from access consciousness is when somebody is expressing opinion that's completely opposite to yours and continually doing that, just looking at them and saying, you're right, I'm wrong. You're right, I'm wrong. I know that's a little bit next level because you don't really want to be making yourself wrong, but I can tell you that that can dissipate an argument straight away. It just cuts the argument right there. What is somebody going to do if you're saying they're right? From a positive intelligence perspective, you do it a bit differently. You look for where they are 10% right. Just look and see whether there is 10% right in their argument or in how they're behaving. If you can look for the 10% that's right about them, even if it's just something that you love about them, then you will already switch into that empathize mode and you'll be in the sage part of the brain because empathy is part of your sage brain. And then, of course, there's also the activate power that you can use. If you feel like you're always the one backing down when somebody else is coming at you and insulting you and being difficult, and you're always the one who's being this Zen person, There is one other way that you can protect yourself from harm from them and not be the doormat that they're walking over, where you can be really being very strong in your boundaries. And that is by being in activate mode. Activate is where you are in your power and you're in laser focused action. Again, all you need to do to get into the sage brain is by doing these PQ reps, by just getting into presence for a while before you are dealing with people like this. But activate power you can get into straight away just by not cowering, by not going into the mode you always go into when you are just lying back and taking it. If you're the one who's always allowing people to be in your face and say nasty things and be mean and be angry, and you don't want to be that anymore, it feels like you're just being a doormat and it's going on and on and on and nothing's changing. So if none of the other techniques work, I recommend you get into activate power. And the easiest way to do that is to go into a power stance. So whatever is a power stance for you, just it could be, yay, that is a power stance. It could be like, yeah, power. Leave the room for a second, go into a bathroom and get into like a seriously power pose. And then make sure you're standing up straight, chest out when you walk back in there. They say it's also really good to do this with dogs as well. Like people who are afraid of dogs, the dogs will go crazy at them. People who are in control, they control the animal because they are just in their power. That is what it is to be alpha dog, right? The alpha male. Just get into that activate power, get yourself really centered in sage, and then you'll be able to speak with clarity. You will be heard, and you will be able to draw your boundaries a lot stronger than you have been before. So I hope those techniques really, really help you. And I hope you enjoyed the story of no presence, please. And you just remember that the next time somebody is coming at you. And let me know in the comments whether this has helped you deal with difficult people. Try it sometime, any of these techniques, see which ones work for you. And I hope things go a lot better. I'd love to hear. And if you enjoyed this video and got value out of it, please like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification so that you can catch my next video. Thanks very much and have a beautiful day.